Welcome to AVoice for Creators. I'm your host, Daniel Norton. This week I'm going to talk about this, again, a note I just jotted down. It said, the death of scarcity. So this is super interesting, and I think that what it relates to in so many ways, right, of course, is abundance. And why I made a note of it, I think, was because scarcity in creators, right? We used to be, if you look at photographers, if you're old like I am, a small number of people that could kind of hang their hat and say professional photographer. And when I say professional, I'm not talking about making money, although that's definitely connected, but I'm talking about the idea that if somebody came to you with a project, you could produce that project for them and create the images they need, almost certainly, right? That's what makes you a professional. And thus, they would hire you to do it, which is the money part. But it's kind of like you could be really good and be professional and not do it for money. So I'm not saying that's. I've made a video about this. In any case, my point being is that it used to be, right, if you were, you don't know enough stop from a bus stop. Well, now you don't need to know that, right? I think I've mentioned this before. There's just like this shirt that's floating around that has like a manual camera thing on it. It's like, this is a professional. And the reality is that's just not the case anymore. You can produce and actually even do it successfully and make money, images and video, all kinds of stuff with much less technical knowledge than you used to have. And some people look at this as bad. Some people look at it as good. You can't change it, so it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, right? But the reality is that there are way more people that call themselves and that work as photographers and creatives now than ever before. So what does this really mean for us as creators? And again, I'm going to take it as when I talk business in these, I'm always talking about like either that you're getting hired, but also just you may have a Flickr or a Instagram and you're trying to get followers and you want people to interact with your work and follow you. What this means is that people are going to be much more likely to work with you, not just because you are capable, because many people are capable, but because they want to work with you, that they like you, that they share some kind of a background or connection with you, or that you just come off as somebody they want to be around. Maybe you're pleasant or you're efficient or you're whatever it is that makes people want to work with you, right? It's always been this way. If you think about it, if you sit down with somebody and you're going to work on a project, if you have something else in common besides that project, it generally helps the overall project because, you can have those minutes in between. Maybe you're coming from a certain thing. You can reference the same kind of things. Oh, man, it could be you're from the same town or from the same background as far as like your ethnic background. Or it might be that you're fans, right? I'm reading that book, Fanocracy, of the same thing, right? And because of that, you can be like, oh yeah, X-Men or whatever the Marvel thing is coming out probably soon. And this helps to build connection, which makes people want to be around you. And if they need to hire a photographer anyways, or an illustrator, and they can be around somebody they want to be around or somebody who's just efficient, they're probably going to want to be with the person they want to be around. So one of the walls that we run into, I think, as somebody who's been around for a bit is this idea that we don't necessarily want to change. So that first part is the case, right? They're going to want to work with you because they want to work with you. But if you want to actually do this for a living or actually make connection and get further out, you do need to consider what people want, right? If you shoot with a certain style or a certain way, or you do these things and it doesn't fit into what people are looking for, it is going to reduce your potential fan base or customer base even more. So already you've got more people doing it, and now less people want it the way that you're doing it. And many people say, well, that's business. You just got to change. But for some of us, that's not really what we want to do. If you get into the creative arts and you love doing it because it's your version, your art, your creation, and you're happy to make a living doing it or to whatever, make some money, you don't want to do something else. If you are a photographer that loves to photograph animals and pets, if there's nobody hiring you to do that and they want you to photograph forests and landscapes, it might just be worthwhile for you to say, no, I'm not going to change. And that's fine. Because as I've talked about before in the Welcome to the Weird episode, people will seek you out. That's the other thing. There's way more people doing it, but there's also way more ways to reach you, right? So it might have been before that you were a pet photographer in this town of 50,000 people, and there was a certain number of, people that were around and they might hire you. Now, people might come from far away. They might see your pet photos, online on Instagram and come to have their pet photographed, or possibly buy prints of them or other things you hadn't thought about doing. Don't break down and just do what you think is trendy and that you need to do. Be true to yourself, but also be aware that if you're not in the position to change or willing to change, as some of us aren't, that your potential customers, your reach, is going to be drastically reduced, at least locally, but it can be exponential long distance. So use the things that work for you. Use the social media, use the connections, find ways to keep being true to yourself and stick out in the scarcity. Make people want to work with you because you connect with them. Find those things that you connect with, and people will come to you. They will come and they will look at your channel. And you might say, well, oh man, I've got an Instagram and I only have 5,000 people watching my images. And I look at this other person and because they're doing all the trendy stuff and they have 50,000. But I will say that usually in those cases, my experience, this is what old age does for you, will tell you that those things drift. Trends come and go. People aren't buying as many hula hoops as they used to. And if you're true to yourself, you will pick up a true following, whether it be in your business or in your artistic career, that will stick with you and that will be, as I say, your true fans. In any case, I would love to know what you think about this. You can check the show notes below. There is a link to the Anchor webpage. Basically, you click on it, you can send me a voice message. You can also find a link to my Discord. You can join up over there and send me a private message on the Discord. That's really easy to do. You can send me an email, AVoice@dnphoto.com. And also, if you check the show notes, you're going to find a link to my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. I'll talk to you soon.